Hello and welcome to Sunday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Caw and I am delighted as ever to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
Very good, Daniel. Very good.
That was a better intro today, wasn't it? That was a better one than Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, well, the clocks have gone forward. Starting to feel there's a spring in my step, Dan.
Absolutely.
Nice weather outside, Mother's Day, everybody out having good fun apart from us doing this.
Need to entertain the masses.
And by the way, what a weekend of football that was. It's goals all over the place, drama all over the place, big results, critical to some of the positions in the table, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But yeah, I mean, all the way through, a cracking weekend card for the top flight.
Aye,
and beneath.
Aye, and beneath, of course. Aye, we will touch on the Championship a little bit later on, and it's worth saying that in the game today, Dundee United beating Ross County 1-0, big win for them.
Just about secures top six for Dundee United, doesn't it?
So I was going to say, aye, big result. So fair play to them, and fair play to Jim Goodwin as well, because that Aberdeen experience was pretty scarring for him.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see he's kind of bounced back.
Yeah, and even when he was coming back up with Dundee United, there was a lot of United fans that weren't convinced by him.
Aye.
So I think he started the season under a bit of pressure. But I watched the Dundee derby. I think it was the first weekend. Was really impressed by them, and I think they've done a terrific job.
Aye.
They're well worth their place in the top six. I think they would need to lose their two final games before the split. St Mirren would need to win them both, and there need to be a 7-goal swing in terms of goal difference. So almost home and hosed, and a job well done. But it's interesting, Daniel, isn't it, when you look at the SPFL table now, the top flight table, it's kind of what you would expect before a ball had been kicked at the start of the season. You'd expect your Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, Aberdeen, Dundee United and Hearts. That's your top six. That's Scottish football's top six in general, but it very rarely works out that way.
Aye.
But it looks as if it's going to work out.
Six biggest clubs, isn't it? Six biggest budgets.
It looks as if it's going to work out that way this season.
Aye.
And it's a shame, the clubs beneath, they kind of need your St Mirrens and your Kilmarnocks, your Motherwells. They almost need one of the big six to be underperforming to give themselves a realistic chance of making the top six for the end of the season. And, I think a couple of them, Hibs and Hearts especially, terrible starts to the season, but they've managed to fight their way, and there hasn't been an outstanding one at one of the others to really make a challenge for the top six. I think that's the way it's going to end now, and that, sets up a really interesting post-split period for the fixtures as well in both halves. It should be an interesting end to the season.
We are officially at the business end of the season.
Counting down.
We mentioned that obviously Dundee United, but the perfect place for us to start tonight's show, I think, is in the City Discovery. Dundee, of course, against Rangers last night. What a game. And another amazing game. I don't even know, I spoke to Record Sports Andy Newport, which we'll see a little bit later on. He was at the game. And I said to him, I don't even know how to analyse these games anymore. They're just chaos. But it's another win for Rangers and Barry Ferguson.
Yeah, but it also made great TV, didn't it?
Aye.
So if anybody was looking in, that's what you want. That's what you're looking for our league to provide. All sorts of drama, mayhem, 7 goals, last minute winners or injury time winners. It was all there, and it could have gone the other way just as easy. It could have been, as some people have said, it could have been 5, 6, 7 each.
Easily, it could have been,
and that's interesting. And, as much as I'm sure Barry Ferguson enjoyed the fact that his team come back from 2-0 down, then 3-1 down to get away with the points, I'm sure he'll have been quietly thrilled with that, because he keeps mentioning the word character. His players are showing that for him. However, I think he'll be deeply concerned, and you could hear in his voice afterward, he looked furious. It wasn't as if he was skipping down the road thinking, job done. He's absolutely furious that his team have turned in a performance like that, and that they've had to leave it so late to dig themselves out of a hole. That was bad. There there's a soft side to Rangers. There's a lack of professionalism to them at points as well. And I think all of that was evident in the way that they started the game yesterday. And that'll infuriate Barry Ferguson, because I think that he thought he was getting to a point where these players realised what the minimum standards were. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the first 2 goals yesterday, Nico Raskin, who is his best midfield player, his first touch of the ball, he gives it away really cheaply, really carelessly in the middle of the pitch. Dundee nick it off him and go up and win the corner. Corner comes in, James Tavernier. So there's Raskin, your key man in midfield. Tavernier, your captain, then doesn't attack aggressively enough the delivery. And it's a brilliant finish from your big pal. I mean, can't take that away. It's a sublime finish.
Aye, really good
But
goal.
Tavernier's got to be more forceful in getting across him. He's got to try and get his foot on it. And these are the kind of key things, the traits that Barry Ferguson is trying to snuff out from this Rangers side, because they're the Achilles heel that will keep on coming back and keep on putting them in these situations. The second goal, it comes, I don't know what Eagleman's doing with the head on the edge of the box. He's trying to be fancy when he just needs to clear his lines. He was trying to link up. It's a misplaced header. Dundee fire it, lob one back into the box. Sterling's not on his toes. Sterling's got to be coming out in a line with the other centre halves. He's not. He's stayed in, which plays Shaughnessy onside. Butland, that's a brain fart. I don't know what he's doing. And that's so if you're going to concede goals like that, and these are key guys making individual errors in vital moments of the football match, I actually felt a bit sorry for Barry Ferguson watching it, because I thought these guys are going to kill him here. Whatever chance he might have, and I know that he's ambitious, and I actually think that this job sort of fits him, it suits him. But he is ultimately carrying the can for performances like that, for guys not being switched on, not being professional. And you're looking at that going, this could be the performance that actually kills him in terms of his chances of landing this job on a more permanent basis. Now, as it transpires, the very sight of Barry Ferguson prowling around in that technical area, I am convinced played a part in getting a comeback out of these players and getting the result. Because I genuinely don't think some of them would have had the heart to go into that dressing room at the end of the game had they not managed to rescue the situation and take 3 points. Yeah. So he is getting something out of them. He's getting fight. He's getting that. He talks about it, character and the grit and determination. But he'll be really upset about the sort of lack of professionalism and the lack of sharpness and appetite, which got them into such a difficult position in the first place, I think, Daniel.
Aye. Well, look, comments are coming in, and if you're watching at home, please get involved in the discussion. Marzuno says, is that 3 out of 4 SPFL games that Rangers have given away a 2-goal start? It's actually 5 of the last 7 games in all competitions. Rangers have found themselves 2 goals down.
It's incredible, isn't it?
At one point. Rangers Easy OK says, this team is the maddest Rangers team I can remember. The defending, the goalkeeping, the passing were honestly so bad, but the character and calibre of Lawrence and Tavernier's goals were brilliant. As I mentioned earlier...
by the way, that has to be said. The goals from Tavernier's an absolute screamer. And so I'm critical of Tavernier for the first goal that Rangers lose, but it's his cross that gets Shaughnessy, in a mess. Concedes the own goal before half-time, so that's Tavernier playing a part in that. He's then scored an absolute screamer to bring it back to 3-2, and then he's put the ball over the top. He's maybe getting an assist. I know that there's a Dundee head gets on the ball before it goes through to Dessers, but it's his ball over the top. So as much as I'm being critical of him at the first goal, he certainly played a role, captain's role, in trying to turn that around. And I think that'll please Barry Ferguson, even if the way that the first couple of goals were conceded will certainly most not.
I mentioned earlier it was Record Sports' Andy Newport who was at Dens Park last night for the game. I caught up with him a little bit earlier on just to get his take on the events, and here's what he had to say. Andy, you were obviously at Dens Park last night for Dundee versus Rangers. I don't even know where to start when analysing Rangers games at the minute. I mean, Wild night, but I guess another win for Barry Ferguson.
You don't know where to start. You should have seen my match report. You sum that up into 900 words. Not easy. Yeah, I mean it's becoming par for the course with this Rangers team. I mean, I think that's what now the fifth time in the last 7 games where they've found themselves 2-0 down and had to fight back. They've managed it on a couple of occasions as they did last night, but I mean the defensive frailties in that squad are becoming quite alarming, I would say, for Barry Ferguson and whoever's going to be in charge next year. It's something that has to be addressed. I mean, the thing I think that will be really concerning for Barry Ferguson is the areas of the team that, say, were getting praised last week against Celtic are now the areas again that are letting them down. You know, we talked so much about the midfield after that Old Firm victory. Nico Raskin, Mohamed Diamande, Connor Barron, they ran the game at Parkhead, whereas at Dens Park they were totally overrun. It was remarkable. I mean, Diamande, that's probably about as poor as I've seen him play since he gets substituted at half-time back, I think it was against Dundee United back in October, November time. So, these wild swings in form and the inconsistencies in this team, that's the reason why this Rangers side isn't anywhere near a title fight. I mean, it's all well and good getting yourself up for the big games, beating Celtic and competing in Europe, but when you consistently slip up, and okay, they got the result, but the patterns that you saw in that game that saw them 2-0 down are the same patterns that are the reason why they're 13 points behind in the league. So, Barry Ferguson, I mean, what I'll say is he came in after the press conference after the match and said that was a game we wouldn't have won 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I think he's right. I think there is a new resilience, a new just fighting spirit. You know, the team looked determined to go at the end, not just to get a point, but to get a win. You saw Tom Lawrence, as soon as he equalised, there was no celebrations. It was everyone back to the halfway line, and we'll go again, and obviously eventually they do. But the things that cost Philippe Clemonti's job 5 or 6 weeks ago are still there, and that's why Barry Ferguson's going to have to go through a few more of these heart-stopping games before the end of the season, I'd imagine.
I need, we've talked about him to death on the Hotline Live, right? But I need to get your take yet again on Cyril Dessers, right? I mean, I've put the graphic up on the screen there. 100 Rangers appearances now, 45 Rangers goals, 16 assists. Look, by anyone's reckoning, that's a pretty good record. But it always comes with this caveat. He had 12 chances last night. That's more attempts in goal than any other player in the Premiership so far this season. He's such a bizarre player.
I was going to ask if you had the stats for last night to show, because I mean, we were sitting there in the press box counting them up as they came and went, all these chances. What I'll say to him is that not many of them were the first opportunity he has where he drags wide, well wide, when he's sort of holding off Joe Shaughnessy. It was a bad miss. The rest of them, I mean, he gets firm connection, he gets them on target, and then they're not great saves, but neither are they right in the corner. It's just done okay without, I think, to be a top class striker, you need to be whipping them right into the corner, and he's just, a bit meh with his finishing at times. But what I will say, and straight to some of the guys I was sitting next to last night at the game, was if only his technical ability matched his mental strength, he would be playing for Real Madrid.
Aye.
Because I think after you've missed 7, 8, 9 chances, a lot of strikers are just going,
Aye.
Get me off. They're just, their head go down, they stop looking for the ball, but he keeps coming back, and he just shrugs off these misses. And I think that is an absolute testament to him. Yeah, we all know he's not the greatest striker in the world, but he's a pretty average striker, I would say. But I think he's got an extraordinary resilience about him that he's able to shrug off these disappointments and go again. And I think obviously you saw that 93rd minute. I mean, it was probably the hardest chance of the lot he had. He tucked it away, and then has another couple of chances after that. Even when you thought the game was pretty much done and dusted, he could have got 2 more after that. So, I mean, he will absolutely no doubt he will drive the Rangers supporters, the Rangers management, his teammates absolutely up the wall at times. But as I've said again, he's such a likeable guy. He comes into the press room after the game and fronts up and talks about it all. And as you say, I mean, this is a remarkable thing. He basically averages a goal every other game since he's come here.
Mm-hmm.
He's come up with 50 goals in the space of 2 years, which is more than decent by any stretch. A lot of decent Rangers strikers haven't managed that down the years, and yet I still think that whenever he does depart, he'll divide opinion. Some will call him, say he's done well, and others guys will say no, he wasn't up to standards. So
Aye.
A truly perplexing player.
What if you were Rangers manager, Andy? Humour me. Would you stick with him next season, or would you look to move him on?
I think he's definitely got a role to play, because as you've seen, he does get goals, and I think you've seen his role at Feyenoord when he was there, when he helped them get to the Conference League final the season that Rangers went to Seville. I think they called him, was it Mr. 90 Minutes or something like that. He was a guy that came off the bench and would score these sort of late crucial goals. I think that's probably his best role. You see him when he comes on to games, because he's got that chaotic kind of style. Sometimes I'm not sure he knows what he's going to do, what way his first touch is going to take him. But it does seem to, that's when he's most effective, when defences are tired. As you saw last night, defence tired. That's when he can find the space and he can exploit. So I do think Rangers need to go out and get a better frontline option. A first choice striker that can be relied upon. It sounds crazy to say a guy with 45 goals in 100 games isn't reliable, but he isn't. But what he does is he does score. It's just you're never quite sure when he's going to get you those goals. So yeah, I think it is an area they need to look at. But I still think he's got a role to play. I wouldn't be, you're looking at, if they do need to trim wage bills, depending on what's happening with the takeover, you're looking at Danilo again, who I thought actually did well when he came on. And I was speaking to some of the guys last night again, sitting around me. They were, Agamani's been a bit iffy. I'm going, well, he's probably set up Dessers for about 7 or 8 chances last night. So I think he actually could hold his head up and say he did well. He could have had 4 or 5 assists if Dessers had his shooting boots on earlier. So, but I do think they need somebody that is a more consistent, reliable, dependable, fit striker. Because again, with Danilo, that's not always been the case. So yeah, I think that's something they will have to look at in the summer. But definitely, Cyril Dessers has still got a role to play. And
just before I let you go, Andy, it's now the start of a huge, 10 days for Rangers and Barry Ferguson now. Hibs at home next, and then, of course, Athletic Bilbao on, I think it's April 10th, the first leg at Ibrox.
Yep, it is, yep. Yeah, the Hibs game is an interesting one, because you wonder what he's going to do team-wise. Obviously, John Souttar and Mohamed Diamande are suspended for the first leg, but does he wrap up an Agamani? Does he a James Tavernier? Certainly a Leon Balogun. These guys going to have to be sort of wrapped in cotton wool. Your midfield as well. Raskin, simply with Diamande being out, they simply cannot afford to lose him to any sort of knocks or bumps. So that's a big one. I dare say, listen, there might even be a discussion to have about the goalkeeper, because I think we're now getting to the point that Jack Butland's form is so up and down. He was a hero against Fenerbahce, but in the howler last night, the one against Motherwell.
There's a lot now. That's a fair point you make.
I think that's a real discussion. I still think in these days, obviously, he's clearly Rangers' best goalkeeper, but he hasn't had enough of his best days this season.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the frustrating thing for him, because he looked like he turned a corner with that Fenerbahce performance. Did reasonably okay at Celtic. I know one of his kickouts led to a goal, but there was a long way between that clearance and the ball hitting the net. But yeah, I think that's maybe a big call as well. But it's a huge opportunity for Rangers if they can get a decent result in that first leg and go to Bilbao. Then, we saw the excitement levels that came when Rangers went to Seville. If they can march on and do something similar this season, then that would be terrific for Barry Ferguson and his team.
Andy, it's always a pleasure having you on the Hotline Live. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before I move on, Keith, to our Dessers-a-thon, John here says in the comment section, Butterfingers has been a liability since losing the Scottish Cup final last season. What do you think about the Butland debate? Do you think I would still say he's Rangers' best goalkeeper, but I think Andy makes a fair point when he says his form is just so erratic.
I think he is Rangers' best goalkeeper, but he's becoming very accident prone, isn't he? And that's never a good sign for a goalkeeper. You know, I think that Barry Ferguson will speak to Alan McGregor. I think that they'll need to have a conversation about it, because these mistakes are sort of game-changing mistakes, and they just can't continue to happen. There was the one, the penalty he gave away, was at St Mirren, when he came charging out, and there's been 3 or 4 or 5 really bad ones this season for Jack Butland.
And see, Keith, as well, we're praising Rangers' character, and, you know, rightly so, I would say, you know, but they can't keep going 2-0 down. They're not going to keep coming back.
No, well, that's what I'm saying, and that's where I think Barry Ferguson will be absolutely boiling, livid at the way they've started that game yesterday, because he's looking for his experienced campaigners to set standards, and his experienced campaigners were the guys that were making the mistakes.
Yeah,
that you know, put them in that situation again. So I could look. You could see the anger in his face when he was speaking after that game. Completely understand it, and it'll be fascinating to see what he can do to try and light a fire back under the same players, because it is the same mistakes and it's the same sloppiness and carelessness over and over. I think training will be fascinating over the first couple of days of this week, because I think he'll absolutely roast them. The Dessers thing, it was Mr. 90 minutes plus 2. I think that was the nickname that he had at Feyenoord that season, because he kept scoring, coming off the bench to score winning goals, big goals in the 92nd minute. I think it was about, it was 5 games or something. Where he's done the same thing. And Andy, I think, has got a point. Dessers is somebody, unless somebody comes in and makes offers funny money for him, you never know, because he has a striker and he's got 45 goals. You just don't know.
If you looked at his highlight reels, you'd be like, this guy's incredible.
And by the way, it would be the most Dessers thing of all time, wouldn't it? If somebody comes in with some massive kind of fee from Rangers, I'm sure we'd be quite happy to do a deal on that front, but without getting anybody knocking on the door for Dessers, you would keep him. You just need to try and find a more reliable, first choice number 9. And I think that's, that'll be at the top of the list, whether it's Barry Ferguson or whoever it is that's in charge of that team at the start of next season. And again, we've mentioned about this, Daniel. Time is of the essence here. It's marching on.
Yeah.
So, I know that Rangers have to get their takeover completed and and legally get it all signed off. And I know that Andrew Kavanagh, it's difficult for him to make any decisions until he's actually got the keys to the front door. But what you have to say is, at this point, you need to be starting the forward plan. You need to be looking, assessing the squad, saying, having conversations with players. You can go, tell your agent, find you start looking now and try and find a club, because you're going to be surplus to requirements. All these conversations need to start round about this time of the year. They should probably have started already. And that's before you're even looking at targets, transfers, guys that you want to come in. I think in an ideal world, you would want to spend a bit of time doing the research properly, maybe going to meet people, have a conversation with them. All these things are vital. And if Rangers are, if they're not very careful in terms of getting behind the 8 ball here, they're going to end up in a situation where they're scrambling a bit for the start of next season. And you would think the American owners coming in, the 49ers, they want to make an entrance. They want to hit the ground running. But in order to do that, they're going to have to make some decisions. They're going to have to make them quickly. Yeah. And I'm talking about over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Look, I don't want to labour the point too much with Dessers, but we had an absolute truckload of comments in. And if you want to get involved in the discussion, please do so in the comment section below. So let me throw a couple of these at you, and then we can move on until Dessers does something next week or whatever. This one here, let me have a look. If I could find them, that'd be good. Andy Kieran says Dessers has scored some good goals, but he should have double that. On balance, we need someone who plays well consistently in the big games. Jason says he isn't perfect for every match, but he's a handful for any defence. Cannot argue with his goal return. Better player than Ida for me. And this one, I mean, honestly, there's so many. Rebel says I like Dessers and I'm not a Rangers fan. Rangers Easy OK says, I get what Andy was saying about Dessers and Danilo, but every time Danilo plays, he's a far better player than Dessers for me. Cannot have a striker miss 9 chances before he takes one. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, I think. I mean, 9 chances before he takes one. That's a lot of chances.
So there's a couple of things there, isn't there? Because if Dessers had a better conversion rate, how many goals would... I mean... honestly,
I know. He'd have a goal every game, basically.
Maybe more than that. He's maybe, if you tally them up, he's maybe missing 5 chances per match. Sometimes less than that, sometimes more than that. But it maybe probably averages out around about the 5 a match. Now, if he takes 2.5 of them, then he's doubling his tally of 45. It's phenomenal. So what does that tell you? It does tell you that it's the old Ali McCoy's one, isn't it? He will miss, but he's getting himself back into areas where he's going to sniff out a chance again. I think he's really frustrating for Barry Ferguson to watch that yesterday, because the game could have been, all right, they got themselves into a mess, but Dessers takes his chances in the first half, and Rangers are probably a couple of goals up by half time. Mm-hmm. So he is a total enigma. There's no doubt about it. There's also no doubt how hard he's prepared to work for his team. And I think that's why, in this situation, Barry Ferguson is going to him as his go-to man. You will lead the line, because I can hang my hat on you in terms of the physical effort that you're going to put in. You're going to battle against centre-halves here. You will put in that side of the dirty work. And I think that's why he's preferred to the likes of Danilo just now. I think Danilo's a bit a more natural finisher, but I'm not sure he can lead the line in the way that Dessers can. And it's funnily enough, I remember doing an interview with Ronald de Boer, because if you remember, they both signed within a few days of one another. Yeah. And you think, where are Rangers getting this cash? They're going to sign 2 number 9s. And I did an interview with Ronald de Boer about it, and he did say at that time that he felt Dessers was more suited to Scottish football than Danilo.
I remember that,
What was it he said? He said, if Dessers... Dessers can be very frustrating. If he has a bad game, he's a 2 out of 10. But he could have a good game and be a 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. He says, whereas Danilo probably be a consistent 5, 6 or 7 out of 10. So, yeah, that's what you get with Cyril Dessers.
Proven to be true, eh?
Yeah, and I don't know how you change it. I don't know, I'm sure Billy Dodds must be working with him on the training ground in terms of his finishing. And yet he takes that one in injury time, the crucial goal, the winning goal, he took it lovely. So, how do you deal with a problem like Cyril Dessers?
What about the comment there, he's better than Ida? You having that? I'm not sure I'd go that far. Very different players, though.
They are very different players. What I would say is, I'm not feeling the love for Ida this season. I think that he came in, he looked good when he came in at first on loan. He's playing below himself, beneath himself this season. He's had a real chance there when Furuhashi, when Kyogo moves away. That was his moment to step up and say, right, I'm Celtic's number 9. And he's let it slip him by. And that's what I worry. Sometimes I look at Adam Eden and I think, are you okay with that? Are you just a kind of shrug of the shoulders guy? Because he does seem to be. Whether it's in game or I'd love to get a little bit more life out of him, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I think there's a real player. He's a real powerful unit. Brendan Rodgers thinks he's He's got all the attributes required to be a Premier League striker, an English Premier League striker. But you just wonder where's the desire? I'm yet to be convinced that he's really busting a gut to be the best version of Adam Idah that he can be. And you know, it's only when we see that version that we'll know how good he is as a striker. I just wonder if there's just a little hint of I'm not saying an attitude problem, because I don't think that's the case either. I'd just like to see him a wee bit more enthusiastic about his work. And I think if Brendan Rodgers can bring that out of him, Celtic will have a real number 9 there. Yeah,
I completely agree. I see where you're coming from. A few more comments.
It's a bit easy-ozy, isn't he?
Aye, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. He just doesn't look up for it sometimes. That might be going a bit too far, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's right. It's just
it's hard to put your finger on.
It's just in his nature.
Aye,
but I would like my striker, you know, and especially if you're Adam Idah and you've got this opportunity and you have been playing second fiddle, I would have loved to see the hunger there. I would have loved to have seen him busting a gut to get out there. And I don't know what's going on with his TV by the way, but
no Peter Leckie, Bill.
And I've not seen enough of it, to be perfectly honest with you, from Adam Idah this season.
The comments coming in, Ron Watson, going back to Dessers, says if we kept Cholak, he'd have scored 100, given Dessers chances. And on Idah, Marzuno says he was handed the key to number 9, he fumbled. Emma Jane makes a good point, saying Idah didn't see Maeda coming like the rest of Scottish football. And Mark Fairfield saying...
I'm not having that. He trains with a guy every day. He's got to see, and that's another thing. You're looking at standards. We're talking about Rangers and their standards and drop-offs and all that. If you're training every day on the same pitch as Dyson Maeda, you've got to be looking at it going, this guy's work rate is phenomenal. And you've got to be, even if you can't quite match it, because I don't know who can, you've got to give more. And I just think that would sum it up. I genuinely believe there's more to come from Adam Idah, but he's got to want to deliver it. He's got to want to dig deep and produce it. And I'm yet to be convinced that that's there.
Mark Fairfield goes one further and says Idah makes Cascarino look like Larson being sold a pup. Stephen Kennedy says Maeda would keep Messi out of the team, so there you go. This segues nicely, Keith, on to Celtic, because obviously they beat Hearts 3-0 yesterday in their first game since they lost to Rangers. Record Sports' Michael Gannon was there, and shall we hear what he made of the game?
Let's do that.
Why not? Mick, you were at Celtic Park for Record Sport yesterday. I mean, I guess it looks like, from the outside like a routine win for Celtic, but a big win, considering it was the first game since the defeat to Rangers.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was quite a similar game to a lot we've seen this season with Celtic, when they start to flex, that they're streets ahead of anyone else. And I think it's interesting. Hearts came with a kind of quite a bold game plan. Some would say bold, other people would say bonkers. Obviously, they'd maybe looked at the Rangers game before the international break and thought, well, maybe they can try and high press against Celtic and try and kind of disrupt the back line and win the ball out the pitch. And to be honest with you, they got a wee bit of joy. The first 15 minutes, Celtic are a wee bit rattled. When you look at the back four, it's a new goalkeeper in Viljami Sinisalo. You get Mike Naroki in there. It's only second game back after being in the wilderness. So I think the idea was quite sound, and I think it worked a wee bit, and they got a couple of wee half chances. We had a big moment when the goalkeeper had a good save from Lewis Nelson and a half turn and half volley. And that was one of those kind of sliding doors moments. Celtic at the park, they broke through the press. This is the problem. You're going to high press Celtic. If they get through it, you're in big bother. And sure enough, the first goal and the third goal were both came from Hearts pushing up the pitch and getting picked off with a couple of passes and a couple of brave balls in the middle, a quick turn, moving the ball at the thirds and bang back in the net. The second goal was a nice little move that was built through the pitch. So Hearts, they kind of paid the price for being bold. We've seen teams that go and they'll try and sit in and they'll get battered anyway. So it was worth a bash. And for a while, it looked as though it was going to be successful. I think what happened was even after the first goal, it was still a couple of wee half chances. But I think after the first goal, you could see Hearts kind of losing faith in the game plan. it was almost like, oh, if they can pass through us like this, I'm not. It was almost like the confidence drained and the bottle went. And by the kind of second half, it was kind of damage limitation for Hearts. I think Neil Critchley admitted that it was a kind of keep the score down job, and I think Celtic really controlled the second half really well. They were comfortable, could have had a couple more, but it was one of those afternoons that they just sought out with pretty much minimal fuss. So apart from the first 15 minutes, it was a pretty strong performance and a good reaction to the defeat to Rangers.
Look, we've talked about him to death this season on the Hotline Live, but I need to get your take again on Dyson Maeda. 39 starts this season, 30 goals now. He's just, we used to say, in fact, I remember you would say it quite often that, look, if this guy could finish, he wouldn't be at Celtic. So now he can finish. It doesn't, I mean, I know Brendan Rodgers is talking about offering him a new deal, maybe tying him down, but there's going to be a big teams looking at him, isn't there?
A new deal is for there's two reasons really. It's to give the guy a bump in wages to kind of keep him happy, and also to kind of build on the insurance policy that Celtic already have. And they've got 2 years left in the deal, which is nice for them. An extra couple of years on that gives them an extra insurance policy, adds a few quid to the transfer fee if it does come in. So it makes sense to all parties. It gives them a wee bump. It keeps everyone happy in that side of things, and also can make sure that they get a few quid if it does come to that. It's had a magnificent season. I mean, since the turn of the year, he's been absolutely outstanding. I mean, you can see the confidence in him. I mean, the way he took the first goal, I mean, perfect. I mean, the ball played through from Calvin was right on the money. But he just took his time. He ran round it and then picked his corner. Really composed. And that's something that maybe in previous seasons that was maybe lacking a wee bit, that composure. But it's obviously confidence. He's obviously a confidence player like most strikers. And he's adding. You look at his repertoire now, he's scoring goals with right foot, left foot, volleys, headers, okay, tap-ins, decent digs, chip shots. He's getting the whole lot. He's really stepped up to the plate. He's been brilliant. I mean, there's nothing really you can say apart from he's been sensational this season, hasn't he?
I guess that I'm asking you how long a piece of string is, but what's your gut feeling? Do you think you'll be a Celtic player next season?
See, I kind of do it. I said my thought has kind of changed. I thought that the fact that that's kind of wide Dyson made a kind of high pressing guy. It isn't quite as effective in higher leagues because I mean Champions League level fullbacks are so composed in the ball and they don't get spooked, they get impressed. In Scotland, defenders do get a bit freaked out by it. That's just the nature of levels. But you look at him through the middle. I mean, he plays there for Japan as well. He's played at World Cups. And now he's added this kind of finished article in terms of his clinical ability in the final third. I think there will be teams looking at him. He's at that age as well. He's 27. I think it'd be really interesting. Really interesting. It depends on what the kind of the monetary value that comes in would be, because he's priceless for Celtic. Really is. So they'd have to demand top dollar for him. But whether they get it or not, I don't know. But it'd be interesting to see. I mean, is he that technical to get a move to the Premier League in England? I don't know. But he certainly showed it in the last few months. He's looked every bit as clinical to handle that level. So somebody might take a punt on him.
I hope perhaps he looks at Kyogo and realises the grass is always greener.
Yeah, slightly different situation. Kyogo's 30 and all that stuff.
Aye, that's true.
20 Ren, but I mean, 27, a bit younger as well. And listen, I mean, if you're talking 15, 20, 25 million to teams like in England and some of the bigger teams in Europe, it's not really a lot of money.
And that's the model for Celtic, isn't it? That's
well, that's the thing. You can't really entice these guys with the promise of doing well and then selling them on. So you can't then not take the dough. They can sit tight and maximise their dosh. That's the whole point of it. Done it with Matt Riley, done it with a few other players. So they're just a strength. Don't have to sell them, but the model suggests that you have to if a bid comes in he fancies, and it suits all parties. But I think Celtic fans would love him to stay, but the model dictates that if a 25 million bid come in, then it has to be you have to let him go. But I think that will be interesting because he's a hard man to replace. He's worth about four players wrapped into one.
Aye, absolutely. The other sort of transfer news that was that came out after the game yesterday was Brendan Rodgers more or less confirming, I think, what we all knew, that Greg Taylor is set to depart in the summer. He says, I've got the quote up on the screen there, it's probably more likely now that Greg will move on than stay. I think that's a shame, really, for Celtic. Mike, I think he's been a really good player, Greg Taylor. I don't really get why there's a section of Celtic fans have never really taken to him.
Yeah, I don't get that either, to be honest with you. I think
It's weird, aye.
a terrific servant for Celtic, been a very successful Celtic team under different managers, with a really big role. Yeah, I think that's a minority. I think the majority recognise what he brings to the team.
Aye.
I think, listen, for Greg Taylor, he's had a good few years now at Celtic. He's done it all. Maybe fancy Kieran Tierney's coming in, and Kieran Tierney's going to be the kind of first choice left back. I still think the opportunities to play will be there for him if he did stay. But I can fully understand if he thinks, well, you know what, this is his peak years of his career. I want to be playing. So I get that as well. So you've got to kind of respect that. Maybe he fancies a wee change. Change of scenery and a new challenge. Yeah, again, it's no surprise. This has been coming for a while.
Aye.
I think he might think it's time now to kind of move on. But I agree with you. I think it's a bit of a shame. I think he's a good servant.
Aye.
I think Ben Rodgers would love to keep him and share that kind of role with Tierney, but maybe doesn't want to share. And I get that. You get that. He's at the time of his career, doesn't want to be sharing any position at all.
Aye.
27
as well. Again. It's looking more like Schlupp and Tierney next season, if Schlupp does stay. And I mean, what do you think of that?
I'm not so sure. I think Schlupp has got a lot of interest in him. He can command big wages. Are they going to pay two guys big wages to fight it out? Maybe. I mean, I think I get the impression Schlupp would be quite up for it. It's whether or not the Celtics can really justify spending big dough on two guys when you can have one main guy and a guy in support and a bit of use the money elsewhere. It's a skin, obviously, but at 32, come up for 33, a lot of money for that guy that age. I think Schlupp's decent enough. I think if you're Celtic, what you really want to do is get a younger guy in with a bit of potential, maybe cost a couple $1 million, whatever, and can be dripped into the team and rotate at times with Tierney with a view to the future. I think that would make more sense. Listen, if it was a case of money's no object and you want a guy like Schlupp to be in the squad, because again, he can play midfield and left back, so it would maybe make sense to keep him in the squad. I don't know. I just think if you're looking for a backup left back, which is what it'll really be next season, it might be a wee bit rich. Not so much the Celtic can't afford it, but can they justify it? Do you know what I mean?
Aye, that's
I don't know. I think Schlupp will have offers on the continent and further afield. Some of these kind of places with a lot of money to be made. Maybe back in England as well. The team's interested in him. So I don't know. I think that one, I wouldn't say that's. I wouldn't be surprised if it did hang around. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't either.
Mick, it's always a pleasure having you in the Hotline Live. Thanks so much for joining us.
We'll catch him this spring sunshine that's finally arrived.
Nice one. Thanks, Mick.
Cheers.
Michael Gannon there, Keith.
Looking suspiciously like a man heading for a fairway near you, didn't he? I mean, he's not even hiding it. He's got a golf shirt on. He's probably got the shoes on under the desk there.
We've had quite a strong response to the Greg Taylor stuff as well. Let me hit you with a few of these comments. This one here, I was actually taken aback by this. John on Facebook saying Taylor should never have been more than a deputy left back at Celtic. The physicality of a 13-year-old boy and gets smoked every time he comes up against a remotely decent winger. Paul says he did a job but wasn't at the expected level. Schlupp looks way better as a player and Schlupp isn't at the expected level. Anthony Kelly points out, so with Taylor away, if KT's injured, we're back to where we were 5 years ago. A bit more respect in the live comments for Greg Taylor, to be fair. Davey says, shame we will lose Taylor, as I believe he'd still play a lot of games. Stephen says, Taylor has given us a lot. Great servant, but time to move on. And Mark points out that, in his opinion, Greg Taylor has been treated very poorly at Celtic, purely because he's not Kieran Tierney. It's a weird one, Greg Taylor.
I think there's an element of that, yep. Listen, you just need to take on board what Brendan Rodgers is saying. Now, you see, when you're around, whether it's games or around Lennoxtown for press conferences, you get a feel. And Greg Taylor is really very well respected by his peers and by his fellow teammates. He's part of the leadership group. He's one of the ones that motivates, that brings people with him. And that in itself, no matter how good he's been on the pitch, and I happen to think he's been terrific on the pitch over the period for Celtic, it's his stuff away from match day that I think will be another kind of invaluable asset that Celtic are losing here in Greg Taylor, because he's part of the command centre where your likes of your big players, your Cameron Carter-Vickers, your Casper Schmeichels, and obviously Callum McGregor. You know, Greg Taylor's played a big part in engineering this sort of win-at-all-cost mentality that has carried Celtic so well over the last few years. I think that he's become expert in the inverted fullback role. I think that by playing in that position and coming in and you know, partnering up with Callum McGregor at times in the Champions League, I thought that was a huge block in the progression of Celtic after the horrible night in Dortmund. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I can see, if you're Greg Taylor, that if Kieran Tierney comes in, Kieran Tierney's going to play. So what do you do? And I wonder about the relationship he's had with the Celtic fans. I mean, I know that he came up through the Rangers Academy. I would hate to think that factors into the sort of relationship with Celtic fans, which I don't think is as positive as it should have been, given the scale of his contribution over the years. I think he's been a brilliant player for Celtic, great contributor. And it'll be interesting to see what the next phase of his career looks like.
I completely agree. An excellent player. Tommy writes in saying Berlini cells have more space than that cupboard mix-in. Free Mick.
That's the room of doom. That's Mick broadcasting live from his room of doom.
Right, before we finish, Keith, a couple of other big scores yesterday. Aberdeen, big win for them over Motherwell after going a goal behind. A lot of Aberdeen fans, Pittodrie, are probably fearing the worst, but come back 4-1 win. I said in Thursday's show that Hibs really had to get that win over St Johnstone, and they did so. 3-0 victory. But the one that I really wanted to kind of pick your brain on was St Mirren's victory over Kilmarnock, 5-1. Yeah. It's just not really happened for Kelly this season, has it?
It's been a very strange season, and I'm sure Derek McInnes would admit a disappointing season. The funny thing was, I was listening before the game, and it was pointed out to him that his record, Kilmarnock's record on the road, hasn't been great this season. And he sort of compared it and flipped the question back, and basically said, yeah, but we've never had he accepted that some of the results haven't been great, but that his team has always been in the game, and it's just been, the margins, the fine margins, which have affected, ultimately decided the result. His point basically saying, we've not gone anywhere and taken an absolute doing. And then 90 minutes later, he's walked off the park, having just watched his side receive an absolute doing. That will really hurt Derek McInnes' pride, because he's not a manager that accepts that. I'll be interested to see. Look, worse than that, in the bigger picture for Kilmarnock, is the result leaves them hanging pretty precariously at the bottom of that table. I think what are they in third from bottom now?
Yeah, there it's there. Yeah, third from bottom.
So, what do I expect? I expect that Derek McInnes, being Derek McInnes, will get something out of this team. I think there'll be a reaction to that, and I think that they'll end up safe, but still disappointed that this has been a season where they've begun it with a European campaign. They're going to end it, just trying to stay clear of real trouble at the bottom of the Premier League table. I think the European campaign gave them a problem that they probably weren't equipped to deal with or cope with at the start of the season, and they've just never got into their stride, and they haven't looked like the Kilmarnock side that last season they were really quite impressive. You knew what you were getting with them every time you saw them. The two up front, wingers firing crosses in, exciting, front foot stuff. It's just not happened. It's just been one of those seasons that I think Derek McInnes will be in a hurry to forget about. He just needs to make sure that he keeps Kilmarnock in the top flight in the process.
We don't get too many comments sent in on Kilmarnock, so I should probably read out Tom's here that he sent in. Come on, Billy Bowie. Now's the time to jettison Derek McInnes. Surely the most overrated manager to ply his trade in the SPFL. I predicted we were relegation fodder after going to our first home tie in Europe and haven't been back since. Neither will I until he has gone. The Saints result was an embarrassment. I mean, look, it's not been great, but that seems a wee bit over the top to me.
I think the comment's an embarrassment, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, there's a manager that took Kilmarnock into Europe, and having taken the job in the first place when they were a championship side, they weren't even in the top flight in Scottish football.
That's a very good point.
He's taken them into Europe. I think that you know, when it comes down to the end of the season, Derek McInnes will look at it and he'll not be satisfied with his team's performance over the course of this campaign. But you know, I think they're in safe hands in terms of Derek McInnes has had wee kind of seasons where at Aberdeen previously where it didn't just go, but he goes away, he reassesses what's required, makes changes to his squad over the summer. I'd expect to see Kilmarnock looking much more like their old selves next season. As I said to you, the key for now though is just concentrate on survival. I think they will. I think they'll get the results that they require to leave that situation behind at the bottom of the table. But you know, it is squeaky bum time, isn't it? It's getting towards the real critical point in the campaign, the you know, the period which will define who stays, who goes, in terms of the Premier League status, Premiership status. So yeah, I keep saying it about Kilmarnock. They kind of have kept stalling throughout the course of the season, and I fully expect them to get the results they need over the next couple of weeks. And this will just look like a sort of a close thing, a bit of a scare, a bit of a fright. But who knows? Because if they play in the manner, obviously they performed yesterday in Paisley, maybe the problems are only just starting. But I'd be surprised if that was to be the case.
No, me too. I do. That comment we put up there just for me epitomises how fickle football fans are. I mean, Derek McInnes, his body of work, he's clearly, whatever you think of him, he's a quality manager at this level. You have a bad few months. He's rubbish. Get him sacked. So anyway,
yeah,
I think on
what you wish for.
Exactly. That's a perfect note for us to end on, Keith, I think. Thank you so much for everyone watching at home, for getting involved in the Hotline Live. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you'll have another chance to do so tomorrow. We'll be back at 6 p.m. to do it all again. Keith, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.